Hey guys, sorry I couldn't be there today, so I made these little videos to help you guys out on the review sheet. Don't forget that our test is on Thursday, this Thursday, the 12th, and that we have a notebook check that day too. So hopefully you also have the rubric of what's going to be on the notebook check with you so you can get yourself organized and have that ready to go too. So this video just has the first 12 questions on it. So we will go through those 12 and then you'll switch videos to do the remainder of the review sheet. Okay? So hopefully you have it out. If you don't, pause it and then come back to me when you're ready. All right, so question 1 says joints that do not permit movement. So these are things that do not move. So those are known as syn, S-Y-N, arthrosis. So synarthrosis is joints that do not permit movement. So remember, these are things like sutures in the skull. So all the bones of your skull, like frontal, temporal, occipital, parietal, all those are joined together by sutures, and we do not want those joints to move. So those are synarthrotic or synarthrosis type joints. The second part of this question says joints that permit only slight degrees of movement, so they move a little bit, but not a lot. Those are known as amphiarthrosis. So amphiarthrosis, only slight movement. So those are things like cartilaginous joints, like where your ribs attach to your sternum, your pubic symphysis, which is at the front of your hip bones. So again, all those allow a little bit of give, but there's not a whole lot of movement there. And then joints that are freely movable, these are called diarthrosis. So again, these are like your arms, your legs, anything that's freely movable. So those are also known as synovial joints. Question 2 says, which of the following is not a type of diarthrosis? So again, going back to question 1, we said diarthrosis are freely movable. So we can move these around. Sorry guys, that was a bell that just rang. So diarthrosis, so a gliding joint, those are in your fingers. Those are diarthrosis. A hinge joint is like your elbow and your knee, kind of like a door hinge. Again, those are freely movable. A pivot joint you would find like if you're going to shake your head to indicate no or yes. Those again are synovial joints. Those are freely movable, so those are diarthrotic. Pubic symphysis joint, that is the joint that's at the front of the hip bones, so it kind of connects like a left and right side. Those are cartilaginous joints. Those are amphiarthrosis, so they are not freely movable. The only time these really move is in like child labor, because remember we talked about that joint's got to give a little bit to get the baby out. So if you will circle or indicate that the pubic symphysis joint is not a diarthrotic joint, it is actually an amphiarthrotic joint. All right, question 3 is, there's another bell, sorry. Where can a pivot joint be found? Again, I just discussed that just briefly with question 2. A pivot joint is between like your vertebral column, so think of like the very top, if you even remember the very first bone, the atlas, and the skull. Okay, so right there when your vertebral column connects to your skull, that pivot joint is going to allow you to kind of move your head to say yes or say no. Question 4, a synovial ball and socket joint of the lower extremity can be found where? Okay, so remember ball and socket joints, it literally, if you make a fist with one hand and you open up your other hand, it kind of fits like that. It's a ball and socket. So because this question is asking the lower extremity, so it's going to be at the bottom, that would be found on your femur or your thigh and your hip. Your femur fits right into your hip, and that is a ball and socket joint. The other one that we're familiar with, that would be of an extremity toward the top, so that would be like your shoulder and your scapula where that meets together. All right, question 5, the elbow joint. This is an example of a hinge joint, so just like a door hinge. Question 6, The narrow ridge-like projection of the hip bone is known as the iliac crest. So again, this is something you should have colored on those flashcards, although I'm beginning to think some of you have not done that yet. Maybe today is a great day for that. But if you go down and kind of feel your hip bone with your hand, that is what you're touching. You are touching your iliac crest. They a lot of times use this as a landmark, like if you're going to get a shot somewhere, they'll kind of feel around for your hip bone so they know, okay, we don't want to hit that part. Question 7, what is the acetabulum? Again, this is on your flashcards, but this is basically where it's on your hip bone. So if you want to put hip bone, in case you forget, so hip bone. This is where your ilium, which is your big hip bone part, the pubic bone, again, part of your hip, and your ischium, also part of your hip, meet. So all 3 of these bones come together at this point. It's called the acetabulum. What's also interesting, which you should have put on your flashcards as well, this is where the femur connects. So where your femur connects to your hip to form that ball and socket joint is your acetabulum. So again, take a look at your flashcards. On the last video you'll watch, we'll do some labeling stuff and I'll point it out to you. But this is where your 3 bones of your hip come together. So your ilium, your pubic bone, and your ischium meet up right here. Question 8, the depression of the scapula that articulates or joins with the head of the humerus is known as your glenoid cavity. So again, this is the part on the scapula where your humerus or your arm bone meets up. So again, that's a ball and socket joint. But that area is known as the glenoid cavity. Again, that very last video that you're going to watch today has some images, and I'll point that out to you as well. Number 9 says the bones of the fingers are called, this one's easy, y'all should have gotten this one, is your phalanges, okay? I also could have said the bones of your toes, same thing, they're both called phalanges, okay? Question 10 says the pectoral girdle, it has 2 bones, so it consists of 2 bones. So it is your scapula, which again is, remember, is your shoulder blade, and your clavicle, which is your collarbone. So those 2 bones make up something called your pectoral girdle. Question 11, when you sit down, what part of your hip is touching the seat of the chair? So again, this is where your flashcards are going to come in handy looking at that image. So remember, we've got 3 options. We can either say ilium, pubic bone, or ischium, because those are the 3 parts of your hip. And the correct answer here is your ischium. So that's the part that's going to sit down and hit the chair when you sit down. All right, question 12. This is the last question that is on this video. You'll have to go do a second one for the other ones. But it says 4 of the 5 answers listed below are part of the same anatomical area. Select the exception. So we're looking for the one here that does not belong. So our options are humerus, radius, scapula, fibula, clavicle. Okay? So humerus is your main arm bone. Your radius is on your forearm. Remember, radius is always the bone that's thumb side. Your scapula is your shoulder blade. Your fibula is all the way down in your leg to the side of your tibia, so to the side of your shin, and your clavicle is your collarbone. So the exception here is the fibula. All the other ones tend to be toward the top of your body, like in your arms, shoulders. This is the only one that's of a lower extremity. Okay, so you should have 1 through 12. If you miss one, just kind of rewind the video, find where you missed. But for 13 through 22, if you will go to the next video.